Imagine waking up one morning to a knock at your door. Two strangers step inside and inform you that you are under arrest. Yet they never explain what crime you have committed. Stranger still, they do not stop you from leaving your home. You go to work, talk to people, and continue your daily life. The only thing you know is that a trial has begun. You have no idea what you are accused of, or whether you will ever be judged. At first, the situation feels absurd. But this is exactly where Kafka's genius begins. As the novel unfolds, we realize that the trial is far less about a courtroom than about the invisible judgment taking place inside the human mind. The trial is often described as a critique of bureaucracy. The judicial system Kafka presents is confusing, inaccessible, and almost impossible to understand. Yet that is only the surface. At its core, this is not a novel about law, it is a novel about human beings. Kafka is not interested in how courts function. He is interested in showing how someone begins living with a sense of guilt they cannot even explain. Joseph K. desperately tries to discover why he has been accused. At first, he believes a terrible mistake has been made. He trusts that reason will eventually resolve everything. After all, the world he knows follows rules. Problems have explanations. Mistakes can be corrected. But Kafka creates a world where logic no longer works. Rules exist, yet no one knows them. Authorities exist, yet they remain unreachable. The court exists, but its true face is never revealed. People move endlessly within the system while the system itself remains hidden. That is what makes the novel so unsettling. Uncertainty often becomes more frightening than punishment itself. As time passes, Joseph K. becomes less interested in defending himself than in understanding the system. Quietly, the novel changes direction. The man who once fought an external court gradually builds another one within himself. What if I really am guilty? That doubt did not exist when the story began. Kafka's greatest achievement lies here. People do not always defend themselves because they are guilty. Sometimes they begin to feel guilty simply because they are constantly forced to defend themselves. This experience belongs to far more than Joseph K. Many of us recognize it in modern life. At work, within our families, at school, or on social media. Sometimes no one openly accuses us of anything, yet we still feel compelled to justify ourselves. We choose our words carefully, afraid of being misunderstood. We question our own actions before anyone else does. Over time, invisible judgment settles inside us. That is why the court in Kafka's novel is not merely a building. It is the invisible order authority establishes within the human mind. Kafka never announces this directly. Instead, he tells the story with remarkable simplicity. Even the strangest events unfold as though they were ordinary. This is where the absurd truly begins. The absurd is not simply the ridiculous. It is the human search for meaning in a world that refuses to provide clear answers. This is also why the trial constantly reminds me of Albert Camus The Stranger. At first glance, the novels seem very different. Yet both revolve around invisible judgment. Musso is condemned not only for murder but because he refuses to display the emotions society expects from him. Joseph K., meanwhile, begins defending himself before he even knows his crime. That is where their paths separate. Camus explores how society judges the individual. Kafka explores how that judgment slowly becomes the individual's own inner voice. One novel reveals the courtroom outside us. The other reveals the courtroom within. Perhaps that is why reading them together offers such a profound understanding of modern loneliness. Kafka's historical context also matters. In the early 20th century, Europe was becoming increasingly bureaucratic. Institutions were expanding, and individuals were turning into tiny parts of vast, impersonal systems. Yet Kafka never writes a direct political critique. What interests him is the mark those systems leave on the human soul. Eventually, external authority begins speaking from within. From that moment on, it is no longer only the court that judges us. Our own conscience begins the trial. The characters Joseph K. meets each represent a different face of this invisible order. Some surrender completely. Others spend their lives trying to understand it. Others become so accustomed to the court that they can no longer imagine another way of living. None offers Joseph K. a genuine path to freedom. Because the real problem is not simply the system. It is the moment we begin reproducing that system within ourselves. That is why The Trial is not merely a novel about law. It is also a novel about modern alienation. People believe they are shaping their own lives, yet gradually begin living according to rules established by others. They are told what success should look like, how happiness should feel, and how they must behave to be accepted. Eventually, those voices no longer sound external. They sound like our own. This is why the novel's ending is so devastating. Joseph K.'s death is not simply a physical defeat. It is a spiritual surrender. By the end, he no longer needs to know what his crime was. The court has already achieved its purpose. More precisely, it has persuaded him to become his own prosecutor. Perhaps this is Kafka's most disturbing insight. Are we really judged because of what we have done? Or do invisible courts condemn us long before we commit any crime? More than a century after its publication, the trial still feels astonishingly relevant because Kafka's court never disappeared. It simply changed its form. Today it appears in society's expectations, in workplace culture, in the endless comparisons of social media, and in the quiet voice inside our own minds. Perhaps that is Kafka's greatest warning. The strongest prison is not the one built around us. It is the one we quietly build within ourselves. And perhaps the first court we must be acquitted from is the one within ourselves. Until we meet again, may we all find the courage to be acquitted by the side